Hello, welcome to another episode of Jimmy's Allotment. Today I'm going to be talking about how to grow courgettes, pumpkins, squashes, and I'll also very quickly talk to you about dwarf beans. So, at any time this sort of this month or next month, so June and July, you can plant the seeds or you can plant them indoors slightly earlier. So, quickly talking about courgettes, pumpkins and squashes, they're all the same plant. So basically they're all grown in the same way. And all of the seeds, so that's a pumpkin seed, that's a courgette seed, and as you can see they're very similar. All you need to do is to plant them about 2 inches down into a pot. So I've got a pot here, 4-inch pot. I'll make a hole in the middle. This is just normal compost. So I've gone down about that far with my finger. And then with these you want to plant them on their side like that, because when the seed swells and it starts to grow, it'll grow from the end here and send the roots down from there. So you want to plant it in that orientation, like that. So as you can see in the pot, it's that way around. And then just put the earth back over, like that. Firm it down so you make sure there's no air pockets around the seed. And then you just want to give that a little bit of water, not too much, like that. And then basically just make sure that's kept watered. And within about a week or so, you'll start to see the shoot forming, coming out, the plant growing. And then within about a month, it will grow to this kind of size. So that's a courgette plant, which is ready to be planted outside now. That's a pumpkin plant, which is also ready to be planted outside. As you can see, they're very similar plants. And if you were growing squashes, again, they're almost identical to these. The leaves tend to be slightly furrier, but basically they're all the same type of plant. All growing the seeds is exactly the same way. Always make sure that the seed is that way up, so on its side like that, and you'll have success with all of those. Right, the next thing I want to talk to you about are dwarf beans, which I'll also very quickly explain. This variety is polka dwarf beans, and they're like a French bean. The seeds are like that. These are some that I saved last year from the plants that I grew, and these are planted in exactly the same way any time in May, June and July, and you plant them exactly the same way as I've done that, but obviously the seed can go in any orientation. So basically all you need to do is make a hole 2 inches deep with your finger, drop one of the seeds in the hole any way around, and then just firm it down and water it exactly the same way as that. Within about a month of planting the seed, it'll be ready to go outside, and the plant you will end up with is something looking like that. The things you need to be careful of with all of these plants is when they're young, so when they're only kind of 4 inches high, they are prone to slugs attacking them. So when they get to this size, you should be okay, but as a precautionary measure, what I always do is just put a few slug pellets around the plant when they're first starting to establish. The second thing you need to watch out for, which is what I've had this year, are rabbits. And this used to be one of them, but unfortunately last week my cold frame got invaded by a rabbit, and he's eaten probably about half of the beans that I grew, and he's eaten the top off all of them. So make sure that when you do put them out, rabbits can't get to them. It's the first time I've had this problem, but as you can see, they'll just take the plant straight off. Now I always save seeds, so I bought the first ones of these probably about 3 years ago. The pumpkin seeds I grew probably for the first time about 7 years ago, and these are seeds that I saved from pumpkins I grew last year. And these courgette seeds I also saved from the crop last year. So if I've grown all of the courgettes, pumpkins and beans that I need, so these are all surplus seeds that I'm happy to post to you. So if you leave a comment at the end of the below the video at the end with your address, I'll happily send you a dozen or so seeds, so you can also grow pumpkins, courgettes, beans or whatever. I'll happily send them to you. Right, so now I'm going to explain to you how to plant the beans and the courgettes and pumpkins outside when they get to this stage. Okay, so planting your pumpkin plant, basically what you need to do is put your hand over the plant like that, and then just give it a quick tap with the back of your hand. Then you'll find that the plant comes out in your hand and you can handle it quite easily. Now these plants, the difference between pumpkins and courgettes is courgettes will make a round bush, probably about 2 foot up and probably about 2.5 to 3 foot wide, and it'll be contained within that area, so all the courgettes and everything will be within that area. So you need to allow that kind of room for courgette plant. A pumpkin plant is a little bit different. These are more like squash plants as well. And what they will do is they will send out runners which can be anything up to 5 or 6 meters long. So wherever the root is, you're likely to get the first pumpkin probably about 2 meters away from the plant, and then the next pumpkin will be probably 4 meters away from the plant. If you want a lot of smaller pumpkins, and when I say small I probably mean about the size of a football, just leave it to it and you'll end up with about 3 or 4 pumpkins on each plant, each of them about the size of a football. If you want one large pumpkin, what you need to do is, as soon as you have the first flower and the first pumpkin forming, what you need to do is basically take off the growing tip there, and then all of the energy from the plant will go into that one pumpkin, and you're more likely to get a pumpkin probably about 2 foot across. So, planting the pumpkins, today I've dug out this area, so it's freshly dug. And what I will be doing is planting a row of pumpkins along the back, and then a row of courgettes along sort of in the middle of this area here. So to plant the pumpkin, they love water and sort of rich ground. So there's some chicken manure gone in here, and in a couple of weeks' time I will also be putting a little bit of grow moor on the ground just to give it that extra boost. So I'm going to plant the pumpkins along the back, so as they run up and down with the runners, the pumpkins will end up probably all over the place. So to plant your plant, what you need to do is establish where you want to put the first one. I'm going to put the first one around here, and what you need to do is dig out a hole probably about that big, which is just slightly deeper than the pumpkin plant. That's the depth of this trail pretty much. So as you can see, that's going to end up being about 4 inches below the ground. That's slightly too much, so I'm going to just put a bit of soil back in. You put your plant in the ground and then make sure you've firmed it down. And what I like to do, like I showed you with the sunflowers in the other video, make a bit of a bowl round the pumpkin plant, and what I will do is puddle that in, so I'll water round that plant in a few minutes to make sure that all the soil is washed round so there's no air pockets. And for the first few weeks I'll need to make sure that these are well watered, and then basically I can just leave them to it and they'll grow along. So in exactly the same way, I'm going to put a row of courgette plants in front. Obviously the courgette plants I'm putting in front because I'll want to pick these as they're forming. The pumpkins will be at the end of the season, so I'll just leave them to do whatever they want to do. Exactly the same way, get your courgette plant between your fingers like that, so your fingers are touching the pot. One good tap on the back, so you've got all the roots intact, and I'll plant the courgette plant probably around here. So in exactly the same way as I did the pumpkin, put it in slightly lower than the ground level, and then firm the ground round, so I end up with like a little bowl shape there, so it's easy to water it. And then that's going to make a plant probably around about that big, and then it'll be kind of this high, so imagine about the size of a dustbin lid, and about sort of 18 inches 2 foot tall. I'll continue this row all the way along, putting pumpkins at the back and courgettes at the front, so I can easily water the two together, and I'll show you on the monthly updates how I'm getting on later in the year. Thank you for watching Jimmy's Allotment. Please subscribe, leave comments etc. below, and I shall speak to you very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.